Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our June 16th, 2026 Board of County Commissioners 9 a.m. board briefing meeting. Let the record reflect that we have 4 commissioners that are present. Commissioner Waldrop is on Zoom. We've got Commissioner Kearns, Jordan, and Brooks in the conference room. And so we will go ahead and get started. Under Sheriff Ritchie has not arrived yet, so we're going to go ahead and continue on and start with Tori Peterson.
Good morning. This one will be quick. This is another subcontract under our block grant that has already been approved. This one is for services for our youth that are on probation for a sex offense. It's a disposition alternative where they're sentenced, would be eligible for JR, kept in the community with a treatment provider. I think I briefed last week on the polygraphist that provides polygraphs for that population. So this is for the therapist to provide sex offender treatment to the kids in the community. $49,000.
Very good. Any questions or comments for Tori? I'm not seeing any.
All right.
Very good. We'll do that on next week's agenda.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, then Matt's here, so we will go to Mount Zerachor. And Kyle.
Good morning, commissioners. Have a handful of traffic code revisions first. Next slide, please. So the first one is a name change. If you've driven our section of Old Trails that turns into Inland Road and connects into 7 Mile, there's a kind of an awkward name change in the middle of it. We had improved the southern section of Old Trails a number of years ago, and this is really just cleaning up the name. We've talked to Washington State Parks. They're very supportive of it and also would like the name change. So it's going to be Old Trails all the way through now, and the name Inlet will just go away. The only thing addressed off of it is the park rangers building there, so they're comfortable with that name change. Happy to answer any questions. Okay, next slide. So this first one, a lot of these are speed limit changes. This first one is for a school. They're building a new school in Airway Heights, at the very northwest corner of Airway Heights. And we're proposing, they're gonna have flashing beacons, and we're proposing to make it 20 miles an hour when lights are flashing. So that's kind of a typical thing we do anytime that we have a flashing crosswalk near a school zone. Questions on that one? So the next slide goes with this. Again, we're in that same area of Craig Road, north of Highway 2, and we're changing it from 45 miles an hour to 35 miles per hour. And that's in keeping with what the city of Airway Heights currently has Craig posted south of this. And it's urbanizing to the point that 45 miles an hour just isn't anymore. You're driving along neighborhoods in a school. So bringing that speed limit down is pretty typical when we get urbanization like that. Questions on that one? Okay. Next. So this was initiated by a citizen request. This is up in Elk, the very north end of the county. And if you've been up there, there's a small community of Elk. There's a Grange and a church, I believe, just north, and in this section where it's red. And they wanted the speed limit reduced. Currently, it's 45 miles an hour. You're coming up to the stop sign at Elk Chattaroy. So it made sense to go ahead and reduce the speed limit. There are buildings that get quite a bit of use right up against the roadway, and slowing people down coming up to the intersection is helpful. So for a lot of different reasons, we're supportive of the request to make this 25 miles an hour in that section shown in red. And also Elk Chattaroy coming through the community is already 25 miles an hour. So just kind of makes the expectations a little better too, a little clearer. Questions? Okay. One. So this is Hastings. This is the area where we had the pedestrian fatality, where we put in the beacons. And we're cleaning this area up with a couple of different speed limit changes. The first one here is the school zone, and it's the same as the other one when flashing. We work with the schools, just so the board knows, and program the entire school calendar year. At the start of each year, we work on whatever school district we're in, so that any days off, they don't flash, and try and make sure it's very clean and only operates when the kids are actually in school. And that way we get quite a bit better compliance from people if we make them flash only when kids are present. So this one, we're extending it out. You can see the red section is what we're adding, and that's to accommodate the additional crosswalk that recently was completed. If you've been up there, we added a flashing crossing where the person was hit and killed. So this is to accommodate that additional area, a little larger zone essentially. Any questions?
Well, I just want to say thanks for bringing this forward. We've been talking about it for a while, and so I think the folks in the community will be very happy to see this.
Yeah, it was a real, I mean, I think Ford knows it was a community effort. We had the retirement home, they allowed some additional lighting to be installed on their property and take down a fence and put it up. It was, the school participated, the adjacent property owners donated a little money and also trimmed back some trees to give better visibility on the crossing. So it really was a nice community effort, very unfortunate event, obviously, but hoping not to have a repeat, hoping to make it a much safer crossing.
And the beacons are in.
Yeah.
Beacons are in, the
Okay.
whole school was out. Yeah, and that was a bit of a lift. We had to relocate a bunch of utilities, a bunch of utilities to get relocated, but it's done. So happy to have that in and operational. Yeah, you. Okay, next slide, please. This is, we're changing Hastings for the entire section shown there, all the way from Mill Waikiki over to past Fred Meyers on the east side of Highway 395. Currently, it's posted 35 miles an hour, but we're reducing it to 30. It has just become a very busy corridor between the schools, between the retirement homes. It's a very pedestrian heavy corridor, and it's on our high injury network because it has so many accidents. And that section in front of Fred Meyers too is just very busy. We actually had to extend some channelization to stop turning movements because this was our highest injury location in the entire county. So trying to take a couple steps to make it safer for the public. It's only 5 miles an hour less. It's a very short section. Obviously, it doesn't really impact travel time substantially. And we think it'll be a safer situation for the public.
Also consistent with what we heard at the retirement. home
Yes.
Street.
Yeah, the retirement home will be happy. They specifically requested this, and we think it's appropriate. It's a very busy corridor with a lot of turning movements, especially when school's coming and going. And also Fred Meyer and just commercial development just has a lot of activity and a lot of turning. So happy to have that happen. Okay, next one. Apologize, these were these ones. This is back up on trails at 7 Mile. And it's a little bit convoluted. I'll try and talk it through a little bit. We're changing the speed limits as you go through Riverside State Park. We've worked with the Parks Department. They're on board with this. And we're changing the portions that are in yellow are going to be 45 miles an hour instead of 35. There's no trail crossings in those areas. And people are wanting to drive it fast. We made nice improvements on this roadway. It feels comfortable to people driving it. And then we are slowing people down for a shorter section, and both parks and our traffic engineer feel to get better compliance out of people by just actually having the lower speeds where it's really necessary, where you have trail crossings. In the red section itself is 25, and that's where you have all the people crossing at the parking lot there. So that one's really busy. That's where we have that elevated island, that platform to slow people down, kind of a bump in the road. And that will continue to be 25 in that red section centered on that crossing. And then the blue is going to be 35. And that's just because there are a couple of more passive crossings in those areas. And this is what Parks was comfortable with and wanted, so they also support this. Happy to answer any questions on that. Okay, and these will come before you at public hearing for your consideration, and I apologize, they're all individual, so we will step through each of those public hearings separately.
And we're just gonna keep going with you guys and since you're.
Okay, so I have one more item, and then Kyle has one, I believe. And this is really a kind of a formality. Next slide, please. This is out at our Eden Pit in the city of Spokane Valley. We had granted a temporary cul-de-sac easement, and the need for that easement has gone away. The road's been extended through. And so The language on the easement said it's terminated upon future extension, but just to clean up the record and make it clear to everybody, we've had the city of Spokane write us something acknowledging that release, which they have. And this is just a formality on our end, accepting the release of that easement. So frankly, it's all belt and suspenders. It's not actually legally necessary. We don't need a resolution, anything from the board. It's just really wanting to clean it up and ensure that everybody knows going forward that that easement's gone.
That's. City of Spokane.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, and the easement goes back to our property, obviously.
That's kind of out in the industrial area.
It is, it's right across from Wagstaff. Actually, Wagstaff's been using it for a parking lot since they extended the road, so we'll coordinate with them and let them know that we're removing that cul-de-sac. It's right across the street from their facility, and we have some pictures, trucks have been parking in that area, so. Hopefully find a new place to park. Other than that, get the rest of Eden Pit back to us and allow us to ultimately do all of our crushing that we intend to do at that location. Any questions? Okay, all I got. Thank you very much.
And then Kyle.
We just have a ILA here. I wanted to get in front of you. We have been partnering with several of the cities, small and large in our community, to chip seal roads within their jurisdiction. This is an area where we are working. You can see this is kind of affectionately known as the triangle to us, because it's where Frederick and Upriver Drive come together, and there's kind of city and county boundaries really close to each other right there on the border. We will be doing that entire green area. If you recall, we converted these from gravel roads to a hard surface via a double chip seal last year. We come back the following year and do another one. And in discussions with the city, they has requested that we extend, since we're doing Frederick, a few blocks into the city, which is really convenient for us. We're already there. And it's about a 1 day's work for us, which does offset costs. It's a day that our crew is not on the county's books, and we get to spread our overhead. We get about another 15 grand in to help cover our costs for overhead compensation out there. So the city has signed an interlocal agreement. It's about $86,000. I think, Ron, if you go to the next slide, I believe the numbers up there. Just shy of $83,000. So, you know, we get to take a day off our books. We get our indirect rate on everything. So wanted to bring this before the board to make sure you were comfortable with us signing this interlocal agreement. We'd be doing this.
What other cities have we been doing similar agreements? I love them.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've done Medical Lake for like the last 4 years. We've done almost the entire city of Medical Lake. We've done portions of Cheney, Rosalia, city of Spokane Valley,
Spangles Park. Yeah, it's through TIB and their small cities program, which Deer Park just graduated from. But TIB, we can perform it at much less cost. And to Kyle's point, it takes our crews off our books and allows us to pump more money into preservation. So it's kind of a win-win. And TIB loves it because it stretches their dollars further and allows them to help more small cities.
It's also extra difficult for the small cities if they do like contracted capital project through the TIB, because then they have to do an RFP for an engineer, they have to hire construction management, they have to do all these things with no staff. And so they have a hard time, frankly, getting any work done. So we've been working really close with them about the last 3-4 years. It's working out great for everybody, because we're saving them a ton of money. We're saving all that consultant time. And we just go out there and turn and burn. Mostly chip seal, but we've done a little bit overlay as well.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna go back to Kevin Ritchie.
Hi, good morning. Apologize for being late. I stopped my office, started working, and I totally forgot what time it was. I just have a renewal or ratification of an agreement with the FBI. We participate in the Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force. We have one detective assigned to it. And this is just the agreement for reimbursement of overtime up to 22,155 a year that they give us if we expend overtime hours while participating in the task force. And they just updated the numbers, so we had to come in and do a change for the events. That's it.
Very good.
Yeah,
Thank you
Yeah.
for coming in.
yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, and then that's gonna take us to Vicky and Ken. We're not here yet. Oh, there they are. Yeah, we're ready for you. Oh. Morning.
He's hiding.
I've got my computer glasses on. I can't see.
Who's gonna lead off?
Well, we are here today to give you an update on replacing the recording system in the auditor's office. So we've been on the same recording system. Well, iterations of the same recording system since 1996. And it is time for a change, which we will go over. And so just a quick point out, the capital cost of this has already been approved by the board previously. It's just kind of an update to tell you where we're at and to finish the formalities so that I can sign the contract. So Ken, if you want to start out.
Yeah, we're just gonna take you through kind of current state with the existing Eagle recording software from Tyler. And sunsetting that application in favor of a new Harris recording solution. So Danielle will take us through those slides. I'll give you a brief timeline for the implementation effort. And we can talk dollars in more detail if necessary. There's an appendix slide for that. So without further ado, Danielle, you wanna take it from there?
Hello, Danielle Van Riper. I manage the recording and vehicle licensing departments for Vicky. So in a nutshell, we are in desperate need of some updated technology and recording department. The current vendor does offer some updated solutions. However, when we looked into those solutions, even if we had been able to come up with the cost to implement initially, the $230,000 a year for support and maintenance are not even close to sustainable for us. So, we've got some concerns about the aging technology. We also want to be able to offer better services to our customers. We want to make things easier for them and easier for the staff, more efficient. So, we found a solution. Ken, if you want to move to the next slide. So Harris Recording Solutions offers a product, the Acclaim Land Records Management System. It will give us the latest and greatest technologies at a fraction of the cost or at a fraction as to what our current vendor can offer us in cost. So this system is fully configurable. Harris is very eager to work with us to develop specific solutions to address our specific needs. So the efficiencies that it will bring to the recording department are pretty incredible. And I'm super excited about their front-facing customer service platform. It really will allow folks to do business from home or from their offices. We like the people, we like them coming in, we like to deal with the people, but this is people don't want to come in and see us anymore. They don't want to pick up the phone. They don't want to, so it really is an updated modern system that folks get their needs met from their telephones or their laptops.
So like or title companies and realtors and all that.
And even more than that, man, a couple of the things that are just really exciting about this as compared to our current software is one of them is called government to government. And so that will allow government agencies to report, basically send electronically right to us, which we don't have that capability right now. That costs extra. They would have to go through one of the third party submitters. So you can imagine what happens when sewer utilities does their liens. It's quite labor intensive. This way, it'll be able to go right into the system directly from the department. Another thing that's really exciting is that this does have the real-time recording alerts so that landowners will be able to sign up to get alerts if there's any document that's reported against the property. It's sometimes referred to as fraud alert, but it's something that we've been looking at and just was too expensive and not feasible with our current vendor. So those are just two of the things in this new system. Being able to do marriage application online, get it all filled out, and then come down here to do final issuance of that marriage license. So just a lot of flexibility, a lot better for the customers and also a lot better for us as the operation. It's pretty exciting.
Oh, that'll be nice.
Yes, it will be a great gift to yes.
Yes.
Is this,
Yes.
sadly, as long as I've been pushing for this, I will not be here when this is finally comes up live.
I've just gone through some of this. It's much nicer and I think, yes, will be much easier for people to, if they can. Come down, and I think attorneys to use a lot of. Claim deeds. Yes, to get everything handled ahead of time and then just be able to come down and finalize it.
Yeah, that's a really exciting aspect of this system.
Okay, the next slide. Implementation, it's a very standard software implementation. We would look at a 9-month overall effort. We would kick off probably in early July. Be hosting some kind of a business process review with the vendor where they're actually bringing people on site and evaluating how we do things and using that information to inform their configuration of the system to kind of make it Spokane based. We do some data conversion with the historical data with Richard's help over in the corner. And after that, we're kind of in configuration and testing mode. Ultimately, we train staff. We'll be training some external customers as well. And then go live would likely be in March. Off to the races after that. So good standard. So the next one is just the ask. I mean, we're looking to get the okay to proceed with the execution of the agreement.
It's exciting. Yeah, we already approved the funds last year in the budget. So it's just a carryover of those. So. Let's see, any other questions or comments?
And Ken has done a fantastic job at bringing this under budget.
Very good, Ken.
Okay. Yes.
Every dollar counts at this point.
Yes. So more capital for somebody else.
Very good. Well, thank you. Okay.
We're gonna get the contract done, get it going and you grab it from somebody else.
But you know you're gonna be in a better place.
Yes.
So, thank you. Thanks, Richard. He's on his way. Yeah. Okay. Schedule. Yeah, look at that. Is there any miscellaneous items to come before us this morning?
No.
I let Zeke and Emily know we're a little ahead of schedule in case they come early. That would be great. Just to let you know.
I was wondering, what's the latest, about a month ago or so, we had a discussion on e-cards. There were a lot of outstanding charges out there that had to reconcile and all that. I know we had discussed that folks couldn't get those done, that they potentially have their e-card privileges taken away. I was just wondering, what's the latest on that? Did that spur a lot of folks to get their charges reconciled? How many are still out there? What's kind of the situation, I guess?
Let's have Jeff come in because he'll have better, he and Heather will have better awareness. I know they were going to update the policy as they briefed to you, that made the language more strong in there. But I don't know what the impact of that has been in the last month.
Okay.
So I'll message him and ask him to swing over. Where's he at?
I'd just like to introduce you to Amanda. She's interning with her office and she comes to us by way of Fairchild and the Skillbridge. So I'm very happy to have her. We're definitely gonna bring her word. She started yesterday through all that madness. She's still here, so that's a good thing. So happy to have her.
Very good. Well, welcome. I was just out at the change of command yesterday. That's where I went with that version. So this is a great program that the Air Force does. So happy to have you join us. Yeah, and we should have you, okay, step forward because they can't see you on screen. So you just gotta step forward for a minute. Just a little bit. There you go. It's like everyone behind the pillar. So you're on Zoom, you can't see, so. It's fine. So welcome. Is there anything else? Any World Cup talk?
Yeah. Got caught up last night. on all
Packed
games.
house.
Yeah, lots of tie games yesterday.
And I'm definitely learning this sport. So. And end of school.
Yeah, today's the last day
Last
for
day.
Mead.
Okay.
For Mead schools, today's last,
Big day.
it's only half day too.
Um,
Final day is always a half day.
Yeah, that's nice. All right, Lou.
I just want to call your attention to an article that I sent you this morning in case you haven't seen it yet. It's an op-ed piece on data centers. It refers to Idaho and Washington, and it's from Center Square.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for getting here. We're ahead of schedule, so.
I can do a quick follow-up with Commissioner Carter's question from Jeff. 2/3 of the outstanding unreconciled items have been cleaned up. It's about just over 500. Then the team gave the P card holders until the end of July to get cleaned up, then they will start putting stops on cards.
Okay,
So there has been some progress
still 500 outstanding.
out of 1,500.
Yeah,
Progress.
It's progress.
headed in the right direction.
Yep.
Okay, welcome, Doug.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are back for an update. And I think related to this, if we jump to slide 3 on the presentation, that effectively summarizes everything that we're here to speak to. We've had an opportunity to clarify and correct some language for accuracy's sake within the agreement. The ultimate outcome and terms remain consistent with how we have previously briefed, but on the capital improvement side, the clarifications now very clearly relay how we are moving forward with capital improvements as a follow through to it's envisioned within the shared expense agreement. And this will involve the county investing county funds into our stadium. All of the improvements, which will be owned by Spokane County for the benefit of the public.
And the contribution is just as it was. We're from the Spokane Indians Baseball Organization. Within the agreement, they will be providing a capital contribution for the installment schedule that comes to just over 1.7 million over the next 3.5 years. And we're really pleased to have these adjustments and the clarification included. That's been supported by the Spokane Indians Baseball, and MLB has signed off on it, as well as various agencies within the county and departments within the county that help us with such. So with that, legal may want to expand, but that is, I think, just a quick overview of the adjustments and opportunity we've had to clarify this language since our prior briefing on May 26th. Happy to answer any questions.
I have a question on the previous slide. If you get back one up, when we skipped over at the top here. If I get my back, it under the MOU key points, it says the last part there is use of the former Parks admin building.
Mhm.
So they don't currently lease the Parks admin building, correct?
That will be a component of the new agreement.
But they don't currently lease the Parks admin building,
Correct.
correct?
The existing agreement does not include formal lease of the parks, the former Parks admin building, correct?
So, but they will be leasing it in the
That
new.
will be part of the replacement
Yeah.
lease agreement, yes.
How can we lease out a new building, a new piece of property without holding a public hearing? I thought that was a requirement for us to lease out any county property. If there's something, if it's a new building or a new piece of property that's being leased out, we have to have a public hearing, I thought.
I'll look to my experts here. I know there's. Yeah, I'll relay.
Yeah, so this is a continuation and expansion of the existing agreement. We have found that there's been ample findings that this matches the comparables that would be met under the county code to comply. Because this isn't a new lease overall. They've been on site, they've been managing the facility, Longall has for the past 20 years. We did not see that a public hearing would serve a pressing public need here. We felt that compliance was met through other means that were handled through this contracting process.
Did we include that in the original 2023?
Yes, that was part of the 2023 memorandum.
Yeah, an MOU.
Yeah.
But is it because of the proximity of the building? Is that what's making it that we wouldn't have a lease agreement? I mean, if this building was located on the other side of town, would we say it's an expansion of the existing lease? Is it the distance from the stadium? Is that sort of what we're deciding that this is part, or can be just sort of tacked on to an existing lease? I mean, we've never done this. I mean, if we've leased out a piece of property that's not currently being leased out, we've always had a public hearing. That's just what that's what just seems odd to me.
That's where, like as you said, this just doesn't come up very often. In this particular instance, this is all part of the same premises that are this baseball stadium. It's comprising. They're not leasing the whole part of the county fair, but this we consider the parks admin building to be part of that stadium, baseball stadium property at this point.
At this point, or have we always done it? Because it used to be occupied by our parks department.
Sure.
I think we did discuss the proximity back in 23 as part of that MOU and looking at those comparisons. That was certainly led us to where we're at today.
Okay. I'm just saying, I mean, most of the attention has been on the stadium itself. But there is the Parks building. Are there any additional buildings they're getting that they didn't previously have, or is it just that?
Just the buildings that they have, that have been constructed as part of the wider, the Vista Stadium improvement
That
plan.
are with inside the essentially the fencing of the property. This is the only one that's sort of outside the stadium fencing,
This
correct?
is it fronts on their, parking, rights, so that's part of why we think this is part of the same premises.
They've utilized the parking there for the building for the last 20, 30
Yeah.
years.
And they built a new building for equipment and stuff that is on the other side of the fence. Of the
Okay.
stadium. So it's
Okay.
theirs.
Part of the master plan process going back to 21, where that was again envisioned greatly due to the proximity and shared use that had been occurring up to this date.
All right. It just seems odd to me. I mean, this has been something that the county has utilized for quite some time. It's not currently, I mean, we're not current, I don't think we have any staff currently in there,
No,
correct?
we do not have
Do
staff.
not, so it's just, it seems like we're skipping a step here with this building. And just say, well, now we don't need to have a public hearing on this. Because it's close to the stadium that has an existing thing. It just seems we're skipping a step, but.
I
Yes,
don't
you got,
think so.
I know, you,
Because of the 23 agreement.
Yeah.
That we already, stated that we are gonna let them have use of that facility as part of the new lease agreement.
okay.
So I don't.
Yeah,
think
and
we're
that,
good with that.
we certainly wanted to follow the 2023 memorandum of understanding to the extent we felt that we were compelled to do so, or that was, reasonable to do so under the county's legal process.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're following all the applicable code, laws, and rules that we need to.
Any other questions?
All right. Thank you very
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
much. On this afternoon for your 2 o'clock.
Very good. Thank you. Put this at the bottom if you wanted to. Sazi come in, so.
He texted me that Emily is supposed to be here in 5.
Okay. I saw him come down. Feel free to have a seat at the end of the table there, Zoo. We're waiting for. Okay. Be a nice walk up.
But
I said it'll be a nice walk up for today.
yeah.
It's windy.
Do we wait for Emily? Are there any other miscellaneous items? Yeah, executive stuff. Yes. we do. Okay.
Sir,
This afternoon, this morning or any this afternoon?
Yes, it depends on our schedule. I'm hoping to do this morning.
Yeah, but because of you.
see, Mariners still in first place, go over Major League stand.
Are they?
Trying to think, you're
They had
still
that,
half a game.
they had that slide, so I was worried.
Yeah. Still above 500, still in first place, but it's, no, close.
I haven't been paying this close attention. I don't think I'm sorry.
I
I
just
knew they
like
had the
that.
slide.
Been up and down.
I just saw that other score the other day and I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it wasn't as bad as that 23 run.
Okay, but you guys get settled, Scott, you had a.
I was just gonna say, we have a elected official department head meeting internally today at 1 o'clock, or 1 o'clock. So we'll be sharing another touch point with all of them on the budget. A lot of it, follow-up from yesterday's briefing to the board. We'll be talking about liability insurance and the impacts of that. Update FTE schedule. So another touch, we're just trying to continue with our constant communications. There's awareness around what the budget challenges are the counties we're coming with. So,
And then, I think we're ready to send out the memo. Josh, I'll check with you. Are we ready to send out the memo on the?
I've talked to people I was asked to, yeah.
I
Chris
left,
is
I did my
gonna-
homework yesterday. I left a message for Judge Smith, but he hadn't called me back yet, so I haven't been able to connect with him.
Okay, why don't we wait till you do that? It seems
I can
like-
try him again today to keep poking,
Send out the memos, because I think that's,
so I should let you know, or who should I let
yeah,
know?
let me know, because I think I'll send it, I don't know, should. And it would be better coming from me right now. Okay, I'll send it as the.
Okay.
I'll just-
Chrissy will agree.
Yes, so that way that will get out. So. They had another conversation with the sheriff on it yesterday, so that we, it's all clear.
Friendly reminder.
Friendly reminder. Now we'll wait, there we go, let's give everybody back.
Spot on it.
Well, just one.
Slushing. Just. You better.
Yep, like per used to doing this all the time.
Usually you put it on my.
You can have another chance. Okay, welcome everyone.
Well, I'll get us started. Good morning, Emily Cameron with the Downtown School Partnership and one of 5 conveners of the Safe and Healthy Task Force. So we were here, I believe it was early February, to give you a midpoint update. And so I have 2 of my fellow conveners here, Zeke Smith with Water Meat Foundation and Lance Beck, formerly Greater Spokane Valley Chamber and now with GSI, both organizations. I'm gonna kick off today with just sort of a quick refresher. I know last time I went through the history of how we got to where we are, so I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on that today so that I can cede the floor to my co-convener, talk about the recommendations that were released by the task force last week. But I did think it's important to revisit why the task force, why are we here today? You probably have heard this phrase a lot in the last 7 days, but hopefully you've heard it a lot in really the last 9 months as well, which is a community is only as safe as it is healthy. This really was a theme that not only drove the work, but became, I think, very ever present during the work of the task force. And so I'm not going to read the slides, but I think one of the things that really became theme that resonates throughout the entire set of recommendations as well as the work of the task force is this concept that public safety and community health are interdependent, interconnected, and one does not succeed without the other. And this is the theme that consistently the task force continues to circle back to. On the next slide, I think it is important to set the stage as to why there's a sense of urgency around this work and why it was so important that such a broad cross section of the community come together to create the task force. We know the situation in Spokane and that people continue to cycle through our jails, our emergency rooms, as well as our street, untreated mental illness, substance use, and unstable housing. It doesn't matter which part of the system, either that you touch or that you were affected by. This is a cross section that in particular that point of crisis here in Spokane. So it's not unique to Spokane. Again, through our work, we saw this across the country that jails have become a de facto behavioral health provider, and our emergency rooms and healthcare providers are overwhelmed by what they're seeing. And then the people who need help most in our community are not seeing those services. At the same time, members of the community, lots of surveys, I think over the last year, have really continued to indicate, do they feel safe in their community? Do they feel that their community is being taken care of? They're driving issues that you continue to see, the reason for this. So fast forward, 9 months ago on September 30th, we launched the Safe and Healthy Task Force. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. The task force represents over 40 members of really diverse backgrounds, expertise across the community, coming together with a shared purpose, really looking at these 3 key pillars: enhancing public safety, supporting behavioral health, and strengthening system coordination. You're gonna hear this a lot throughout today's presentation, but these, again, are not standalone silos, rather, these are interconnected pillars to building a comprehensive plan to address the needs and really the more specific crisis in Spokane County. Next slide. So the task force came together with a core vision. In Spokane County, individuals with serious mental illness and substance use disorders will have access to a comprehensive, effective, humane, equitable, and data-driven system of care, one that improves public safety, strengthens behavioral health, and ensures coordinated services, adequate and effective correctional facilities, and crisis stabilization capacity. That is a very big vision, but I think that is the reason that this effort is different. You saw, again, a very diverse set of members of the task force. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slides. So over 40 task force members, over 120 advisory committee members coming from everything like healthcare, but and public health to the business community, housing providers, the judges and justice system, first responders, emergency responders, labor, philanthropy, government, law enforcement, survivor support, as well as individuals with lived experience. This broad cross-section coming together, sharing their experience and their expertise, as well as engaging the community. That's how that big broad vision was developed, because those are the elements that were identified as necessary in building a system of care. Next slide. So 9 months ago, the task force launched. It has been monthly. While it was intended to have 8 meetings, it actually had a total of 9 meetings. That last meeting occurring in early June. In between meetings, there were those advisory committee meetings, a total of 3. And remember, the advisory committees were split into 4 areas, which you'll notice in the recommendations very much in those 4 areas of discussion. Again, again, built on the work that was started back in October with the Lifeman Group, Judge Lifeman held a full-day workshop. Again, with about 100 community participants, very broad cross-section that developed a set of 54 recommendations. That was further refined, that helped build those 4 advisory committees and framework of work through task force. Fast forward over 9 months, the groups met, they continued to refine and build what became the task force recommendations that were finalized and released last week. So quickly, I want to just talk about setting the stage of the recommendations before we get into them. What was the guiding framework by which they were developed? The idea is, next slide, they want to be data informed, and I'm going to caveat that on the idea of some of this, we don't have the data for, but really it was about building the framework to prioritize what data is needed. You know that there's a lot that's out there. Transparency was really important, and again, this idea of cross-section. So the looking across agencies, across jurisdictions, as well as incorporating accountability into both the work and measuring the outcomes. Trauma-informed and culturally responsive. This was really something that was set as a foundation, that first meeting. The idea of we have to meet people where they are. We have to look at this through the lens of what the community needs. And then piggybacking on that is the dignity and lived experience at the center. So making sure that this isn't just about looking at outcomes, but how are we including the voices of those who are going to be affected by the outcomes? And then finally, of course, being community focused. So that this is about the safety of everyone in our community. Everyone from those who are working in the facilities, those who are incarcerated in facilities, and who are receiving care facilities, as well as many other community-based opportunities and options to address community safety and health. So last and not least, the next slide here, I started with this, I'm going to end with this as we go into the recommendations. Cannot emphasize enough that this is a theme that you're going to see woven throughout every single element of the task force and its recommendations. Safe and healthy must go together. A public safety in Spokane depends on community health, and a healthy community depends on a justice system that is built for the complexity of today's challenges. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Zeke and Lance to dig into team recommendations.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Lance Beck, Chief Strategy Officer, Greater Spokane Incorporated. I started this project at really, we say in September, but truthfully, we started with that group that went to Whatcom County, which was now coming up on the 2-year anniversary. I think it's June 24th, 2024, when we took that through the community leaders across the corner of Washington to look at how they had done their public safety measure. So started that work as the leader of the Valley Chamber of Commerce. They served as one of the conveners alongside these guys, and I've since done this long enough that I was able to make a career transition in that midst. So hopefully we get to see another iteration of this work where I can see it from this seat. So as a convener, I think what I would point to is none of us started as experts in public safety. We're first to say that. But what we were committed to is bringing together a table of experts and a table of people from our community that really care about it. So we've got Judge Hazel here with us today and Mr. Sparber here with us today. And so I welcome, as we get into the meat of the recommendations, we are only the expert in the recommendations as having sat through all the meetings and sat through the crafting of the plan by those that were brought on to help guide us through this process. And really, we work diligently to make sure that the voices stayed at the table. And so we consistently heard that this process was different in one very specific way from previous efforts to do this work in the community. And that was in the way that the community was truly at the table with the experts from within each of the fields, and then the individuals that have been in the system, part of the system, victims of the system, or victims from individuals who are dealing with the justice system. For all there, that was not easy to keep that table set. We spent a lot of time, a lot of evenings, a lot of mornings, trying to keep people with cool heads and willing to participate across this table. And we saw a lot of relationships in the end be developed over time. So if you're paying attention to the media, that's something that we've been slowly dripping out, is some of those narratives around what happens when we stay at a table long enough to understand that maybe our differences aren't quite as extreme as they were actually on the same day. Saw that from the very first meeting. We saw groups of experts in this effort that you would think see each other often, and in fact within the system themselves hardly ever talked about how their work crosses over. And so very eye-opening from the beginning, and was that way all the way to the end. So back to the idea that 40 task force members were at the forefront of this work, over 120 other advisory committee members. The assessment that we did, needs assessment in the middle of this with Judge Leifman, saw another couple hundred in there. So the table was broad and wide, and we didn't turn anybody away. And then as we get into this, you'll see the recommendations are divided into groups A through D. The structure reflects the consensus between the public safety, behavioral health, housing, courts, corrections, and crisis response, and that it can't, as Emily said over and over, it can't be addressed in silos. It needs to be addressed as a system. As we get into the meat of these, I just remind you, I'm going to give the surface level here. We invite Judge Hazel and Mr. Sparber, who know much more of the detail in this, to chime in. I'll be a little bit of the play-by-play. Zeke will be the color commentary along with our friends, and feel free to ask questions. I hope we can answer most. We may have to defer to one of the experts that was in the work groups to be able to get you even more details. So the first recommendation, A1, is establishing a cross-sector implementation and accountability coordinating council. This was not at the forefront of the work when we started, and it rose to becoming arguably the biggest key pillar of the work and where we start, truthfully. And so throughout the process, perhaps it was one of the most obvious observations that hit us about midway through, is that, boy, we need structure to this to be able to let it breathe, let it learn, and let it come forward with good, solid, firm recommendations on how to implement the core of the other 13 components here. So when we look at the intent is not to create another committee necessarily, but where can we use systems that are in place? But we do have to create a new version of what's here, because what's been in place hasn't clearly worked for some time now. As we look at it, it calls for the design of the implementation process that includes public, private, nonprofit, philanthropic, tribal, victims' rights, and lived experience representation. That's some of the key components that were identified to having been missed in previous coordinating type councils. The report specifically identifies accountability, transparency, and shared outcome measurement as a foundational requirement for that committee's long-term success. We know that we have several key jurisdictions within our community that a lot of this work touches, and so we have to find a way for those jurisdictions to all have a seat at that table, have the power to be invested in it, but also have the ability that they understand they're accountable to peers as well as the public within that. There.
Just two keys. I said this in the press conference last week. The key to the coordination structure for success, in my view, it's got to be permanent. It can never end, because there's always fluctuations going on. That's one thing we learned on the task force and learned from past lessons, is it's got to be permanent. And then it has to be expansive enough to have all the key elements of the criminal justice system, including behavioral health, not just your typical stakeholders. Just similar to how the task force had diverse composition. But there's going to be so much opportunity for alignment if that structure is in place, and a lot of low-hanging fruit that just comes up organically.
I would just add, Zeke Smith, Watersmeet Foundation, that, you know, there's been good conversation about, and Lance alluded to, is this a new thing? Are there ways of using existing structures? There's been conversation about Spokane Regional Law Justice Council. Is this an opportunity to kind of reshift and think about some of those elements that are key here, including real kind of multi-jurisdictional engagement, but also having different representatives at the table. I think there's a number of folks who are looking at recommendations from the National Hub on Criminal Justice Coordinating Councils. I will say that I think that this particular recommendation, as Judge Hazel alluded to, calls for something that is not exclusively focused on criminal justice, but really does frame around the integrated different systems that we talked about. I think this is really doable. Recognize that there's negotiation that has to happen in order to get there, but also I think this will probably be the recommendation that people will be looking to you all and others quickly to say, okay, how do we actually start to stand this up? Because it'll be an important marker of momentum as
You know, just to add too, that I had an opportunity to talk with them yesterday and shared about the community engagement efforts that's going on through the MacArthur capstone, and there's already, you know, kind of in progress, some of the work that is kind of overlapping with what the Safe and Healthy Task Force is doing, along with the discussion about the Spokane Regional Law Justice Council and how we might be able to partner with that, redefined and use at the table and so forth. So.
Just so there's no confusion, I don't think anyone's proposing a structure where anyone's giving up any authority or upfront committing to funding, other than there's gonna be a request for some administrative funding for the council, but as far as tying up fund, that's not what this is about. It's about getting all the right stakeholders to the table in a permanent capacity. Everyone has their independent authority under law.
Advisory body, it only works if there's the right amount of influence across each of the jurisdictions. About influence and advice, so I think that is pretty critical. Take us away, Lance.
Okay, we can go to the next slide. We'll try and cruise through these and then we can take a bunch of questions. And again, if you have something that you want to ask at the moment, please don't hesitate. But let's see here. Yep. So the second group of recommendations focuses on cross-system coordination. I'm gonna give a little optics. So we had leaders such as Jan Downing from Frontier Behavioral Health, Justin Johnson from the county, John Brown from Chaz, Matt Albright from Providence, to name a couple of the key advisory group leaders within there. One of the strongest findings from this part of the work was what Spokane as a region already has. So many of the components are that you see in successful high functioning systems across the country, we actually have in place. Some are emerging, like the PAT Center coming online, breaking ground during the middle of this process is really fun to be able to be a part of that and start seeing how these pieces will all shape the overall system. The piece that was very obvious though is that the system itself doesn't work all that well together yet. And so when you look at recommendations B1 through B4, a big part of the focus from the task force came into how do we focus strengthening the connections between those systems? How do we focus on that being based around data, being able to share data, stronger peer integration and more effective handoffs between providers and the agencies that are going to service the individuals in the system as they move through it. So recommendation B1 is establishing shared data and accountability systems. B2 formalizes prevention partnerships. B3 integrates peers and lived experience throughout the system from the entry point to the exit point. And B4 focuses on the warm handoffs. You'll hear that terminology quite a bit. That became one of the most important focus points that we could see there within this section. But the warm handoffs and coordinated care in planning that can reduce situations where individuals fall through the gaps within the system. Having somebody that's been there or is in it, working with them, that's a peer to help guide them through that process just becomes critical. The idea we talked about the pilot program that you guys have been running, the MacArthur funding, and just the success rate of getting somebody to appear in court, for instance. But how do we take that and scale that type of programming to be integrated throughout the entire system? I think one of these, we saw this from the very beginning in the group Tony helped lead for us. Just that moment of having these people in the same room and having a few ahas like, well, why aren't we doing that? Or yeah, that might be hard if we schedule somebody 3 different days in 3 different courts for a week and they're supposed to have a job and take care of their family. What's their actual route to getting out of being engaged with the system and being back to being a positive citizen within our community? So some of those things where we could remove barriers right away with intentional coordination, and it's just simply the coordination hasn't happened. But making that an intentional part of the process. So
the other thing I would add is that the report is structured such that underneath each of these recommendations, there's a call out of immediate action steps that are possible. And that's really, I think, begins to get a kind of a tactical level where there's opportunity for continuing to make progress. The other thing I'd say that aligns with that is while there's no doubt that I think everybody agrees we need additional resources, both on the operations side and on the capital side, as we think about in this integrated system, there's a lot of places here that don't require us to go get immediate additional funding to be able to make some progress. These B1 through B4 in particular, yeah, there's going to be some resource that's needed to do some of these things, but it also, there's a lot of places here where it's really about getting the right set of folks in a room and then having the right accountability structure to be able to incorporate and implement on some of the changes that those folks identify, whether that's across systems or whether that's within systems. So as you're looking through this, and I think as people come back to share with you kind of pieces that are important to them. You know, we're really cognizant of the fact that we want to pay attention in particular to the things that can move most quickly and that don't actually require additional resources, recognizing that that is also a conversation that is live and is happening.
I think it's also important in this one to acknowledge, so in addition to our advisory groups, we also had subgroups that met on specialized topics, including data. We all recognize how important it is to have data. And so there has been a group that's been meeting, led by Misty, we get our last name right now, with the courts, and Dr. Velasquez with Spokane Regional Health District, and really looking at the opportunity to share information and again, kind of prioritize data collection so that we're able to increase transparency.
And then along with that, we tie in the dashboards from the MacArthur Foundation. We have 3 of those done. We're on our way to have 4 of those done. Now, one you just found out yesterday with the, you know, the housing development. We're working with them too. I'm sorry, the permitting process, that we're working with. So we have the jail pretrial services and the prosecutors done so far. And so we're going to keep moving on that. Our next is working with Tim in district court and the therapeutic courts for a dashboard on that part of it. Good progress. And then I'll also remind you that we have hired JMI to come in and evaluate all of our systems, which they've been busy working on. They're here this week interviewing folks on, you know, how they tie in the connectivity of all those, what's missing, what's not, what's still done by paper, and that type of stuff that we'll hope to incorporate in this overall larger conversation. So.
Well, yeah, I was wondering if you could just give me an example of like what were some of the biggest ahas around creating those connections between providers and institutions. Like, are you talking, when you say that, are you mostly talking about like hospital or behavioral health or other healthcare providers? And you know,
Give you like a very tangible example.
yeah, like where
So,
when you guys were having your conversations, did you find that there is a gap that we need to?
So if we release someone from jail at 2 or 3 a.m. But our service programs for getting them into the next step, where we might send them from a useful community program that they could be on an assist to get them back on the right track. If that program doesn't open until 7 a.m., we've got a 5-hour gap where that person is let out the back door, released to their own devices. Where do they go? What do they do? Will they get connected with that service? So 2 parts in that. Do we have to release them at that time? And could that program be made available at the right time? If we do have to release them at 2 a.m., then how do we make sure that somebody's there, the right person is there to pick them up and get them into the next part of their path back to be on the right path? And so that's just one core simple example of where we identified a gap within the system itself. We have great programs that could service that individual. We have a timed release that is required by law on some level, and those two aren't currently being brought together into a way that helps the individual. The individual is left with gap in services.
And just informally, we've tried just unlabeled, unofficial pilot programs since then. So for example, Sparber's contacted Salvation Army. Jan Dobbs was willing to come be available for a pickup at the jail. And if we can get those coordinations done.
And make it more formalized.
Exactly. And there was a complete lack of I wasn't even aware of how many people were being released after hours, or whether that was a significant impact. So we went back and studied our data, and actually, no, it's a significant amount of people. So it's something we have to figure out. But I think it's an easy solution.
Yeah, I would go along with that too. Another kind of an epiphany was, I believe that the community thought the folks were in jail for a longer period of time. And actually the turnaround is a short period of time for us to, you know, get them to the right resources and wraparound services. So I think they were thinking that they would get all those services at the jail before they get released, and they're just not here that long. And so the coordination has to happen. And again,
another epiphany is that at one point in time, a lot of these issues were coordinated. We had, at some point in time, we had addressed them, but then there's change in staff, there's just change in policies, there's COVID, they go away and we got more siloed, not even being aware of it. That's why the structure needs to be permanent.
Interesting, thank you.
Go to the,
Just real quick, I was just thinking of, when I first met with the drug court coordinator for Superior Court, who's no longer here. She had a kind of process of having a really strong communication with the Crisis Stabilization Center about whether people coming through drug court, whether they had slots open. And so I don't know, she's gone, and I have no idea whether those phone calls and relationships are continuing. So I think that's just another example of the opportunity to look at formalizing some of those connections. Right.
yeah, some of it is obviously additional work and additional dotting of i's and crossing of t's, but if it creates the better outcome that we need, it will save money in the long run. And so the extra effort up front, though cumbersome to some, is actually the product of what will create solution. And so back to Zeke's point, we learned a lot of what we already have existing. The challenge is it's not coordinated and not connected, and some of that is just because of time. People change, seats change, and program management changes over time.
Part of the reason then for an effective and sustainable or permanent coordinated council is having a body where you can surface those issues and where you can actually try to address them. I mean, in the example given, you might have a city-funded provider, you're talking about a court system, you're talking about a jail system. They're each kind of governed in different ways. And so having a space where the folks that do have authority over those different resources are at a table together and can understand those issues and figure out that what are the oftentimes simple solutions that might allow us to make sure we can actually take care of that. That's really, I think, a great example of why this coordinating council kept resonating to the top for people. Is okay, so but who's gonna actually hold that accountability and responsibility kept being the question, because we're talking about multiple systems that don't always work together.
We can go to the next slide because this builds on it well. So as we get into the third section of recommendations, section C, C1 and C2, this area begins to talk about program services and process improvements. And again, pointing to, we have a lot of existing really great programs. Some need to be scaled. Some maybe aren't performing as well, and we need to do gut checks on whether good people running a good program not getting the results that the community needs might not be the right community for this program. And so there's both scaling and there's downsizing certain programs that might come of this effort. But when we look at this and you pulled in the leaders from healthcare, behavioral health, law enforcement, and courts, emergency response, consistently highlighted the importance of providing the right response at the right time. I'll use a North County example. Chief Vinci from Fire District 9 highlighted one of the components just because of the nature of the geography. When you get to the North County, his department and District 4 that they border with are often the first responders to a behavioral health issue. They're less equipped for that than maybe their peer districts at times, although making strides internally, realizing that the demographics they serve are changing. That's a co-response in many cases with the sheriff's department, but due to the geography and the nature of the response time for the sheriff, you might have a 5-mile distance that deputy has to be able to get to. And so you're getting an engine on that call up north with a fire team that's not necessarily skilled in behavioral health. So what additional resource might need to be made available in the North County to respond for the increasing demand on behavioral health? It's there, it's real. We haven't quantified that data well enough to really justify it, but that would be part of that process when you look at programs and services. C1 focuses on scaling alternative crisis response models. We have the behavioral health units in the city of Spokane. Those have been really great when you think, I keep pointing at the fire, but it's easy when you have an engine. That's a huge apparatus. That's a huge cost per mile piece of equipment to send out for a response that is not a fire response, does not require that type of engine. and could be there even quicker when using something like a Suburban with the right team of behavioral health experts showing up for that. C2 focuses on a coordinated intake and assessment. So a lot of this part, it could be in the field. That was interesting. So we talk about the evaluation in the field. We've had some pilot programs in the county that we've seen that done with, but also then when you look at our jail facility, a lot of insight came on to what we're receiving at the front door of the jail is not always a criminal instance. It's a criminal component as a byproduct of why that person's getting there, but that person may not even be able to be assessed in a way because of what's in their system and their ability to coherent on some level when they're pulling them in. I'll let Mike talk more about that piece, but the underlying principle is simple within this. Many individuals currently enter the system in the middle of a crisis. Not always criminal, although maybe with a criminal byproduct of some low level. The recommendations aim to create an earlier and more coordinated intervention process for this. We had a lot of conversation around the difference between deflection and diversion. We learned a lot of new words, and words matter, and they have different definitions, and where they're put in the structure of some of these sentences carry more weight than others. And so just note that again, I'll point, we're not the experts in that, but we had a lot of experts in the room pointing out there's differences to this. The expansion of mobile crisis response and alternative crisis models, more consistent assessment standards across all the entry points. So again, if somebody's being treated by fire, loaded into AMR, sent to the hospital, but also might need a longer term behavioral health component, that person's ending up in our ERs. If you've been at ERs, you've seen the challenges that all of our ERs within the region are facing. Less of health issues being seen in ERs and more in behavioral health, which causes a very challenging environment. Our healthcare providers point to one of the places in Washington State where you're most likely to be assaulted is actually ERs. That statistic is true within several of the systems today. And so, and then a reduction of unnecessary emergency room utilization in jail bookings. So when we look at it, it might be we just don't have anywhere to put that person except for jail, but jail may be the very last place that that person needs to be getting better and being back on the right path. The second set of C3 and C4 diversion and high utilizers. So recommendations C3 and C4 focus on strengthening diversion and deflection, as well as addressing the needs of our high utilizer population. So this you'll hear consistently interview anybody from the detention services team, and they know a lot of these people by name, not because it's on a plaque of any sort. It's just because they see them cycling through. They end up costing us as a community substantial dollars to continually service them. Part of that is that we don't have that back end to ever see them through. We get them through our system in an existing fashion, but we don't follow them onto a place where we can get them into a more sustainable path to back on the right direction. The task force repeatedly heard that the small number of individuals is accountable for a disproportionate share of the interactions across jails, emergency room, crisis system, and then first responder resources. The recommendation is not simply to divert them. There's got to be the accountability there, but pair that with the targeted interventions for those individuals who are interacting with the system most frequently. Expanding pretrial diversion opportunities, use validated assessment tools and coordinated case management, identifying those high utilizer populations, and then creating systems of both data and programming around those individuals. And then the focus of resources where they can have the greatest impact. And so again, when we look at our programs, we need to do a bit of a gut check. Having a program to just serve a population that is there to serve the population, if it's not getting the outcomes that we need, we might not be able to afford to do those things now. We need to focus on the things that are actually creating the results within that population.
Get a long fly ball.
Yeah.
Sparber's against the walls. Gonna catch it.
I would just add too, so one of the biggest challenges is that there's no centralized forms or centralized intake assessment forms across the system. And so everyone starts like 50 first dates. Everybody starts over each time they do it. And the individual may fill out 3 of them before they even get through the process. So when we're looking at this, we'd like to have a connectivity through the first responders, the jail, and then obviously the hospitals and the mental health professionals, that we're all speaking the same language, that we have the same assessment tools that are available to everyone and they agree upon them, along with having the release of information that we can all utilize. And that way, the first responder that is up on the scene can look at the back history and understand how they got there in the first place. And without that, or knowing that medications were issued at one point and they're not taking them and those type of things, it's a start over each time. So I think it's a real important piece of what we're talking about here. The other is the need to understand that the booking area that we have now is not really the booking area that we need. It doesn't serve our population. We need a more therapeutic, quick triage that gets them, to the right locations, whether it be the Crisis Stabilization Center or one of those other locations, and then also has the wraparound services when they're released, so that we have the warm handoff that they're talking about on the way out. So a lot of work to do, but done right, it could be really, really successful for the organization. So
just touch on with these recommendations, a number of places here where it does require, again, other systems to be engaged in playing. The last recommendation around strategic workforce investment, that's absolutely a function of thinking about what's the workforce need to look like inside of the systems that we're talking about, inside of the jail system, but it is also recognizing that as we build out the behavioral health supports that we need, we're going to need to work on workforce issues there as we continue to build out the community-based solutions that we know can be most effective in keeping and converting people out of the system. Again, workforce investments there. So it's a place where we also recognize we've got to bring some other players to the table, like our Workforce Investment Council, and really lean on those other systems to figure out how are we thinking in a longer term way about the kinds of investments we're going to need for our workforce that can complement the kinds of investments that we ultimately are going to make in our capital infrastructure as well.
Then we didn't hit directly, but C5 through C7. So again, Zeke just hit C7 when it comes to workforce. C5 and C6 dive deeper into, we can't just treat the product of this. We also need to look at the upstream and where we can prevent. And so when we look at prevention, we had a subgroup that broke out from this team focused specifically on youth prevention. And so getting upstream in a younger demographic and trying to start that cycle earlier. I think back to DARE was this big program, right? When a lot of us were kids. And that program is hard to find nowadays. So components like that get into the schools and be able to interact with individuals to help them understand some of this culturally responsive components. How do we embed that within the system so that we have, when we look at peer navigators, like listening to somebody who's like you, who looks like you, talks like you, understands you is such an important part of navigating the system of care that we have in place in the justice system in general. How do we embed those supports throughout? And again, when you look at the programming slate that's made available, what's successful to help the individuals that are inside our system being treated to get to a better outcome and not come back to us. That was this key component within that. And so we can go to the next slide. So the final section of this was related to facilities. And so facilities generated definitely some of the most extensive discussion throughout the process, some of the most lively discussion throughout the process. But what was really clear from the onset was that the task force looked at this and said it should be framed as facilities, not services within this component. And what are the facilities that we have? What can they provide for those in the system, and how do they create better outcomes? I think it's interesting. This was that spot where we looked at it and said, hey, this set of assets we have across the board in our community is actually really solid. We are not starting from scratch. We are actually, in fact, quite further ahead than many communities across the country, and we're continuing to build pieces that fit into what is viewed as being a really great system. Do we need more coordination in that, and do we need tweaks to what we have, and are some of them not performing for the outcomes we want? 100%. That was obvious, and so it calls for investment in modern integrated justice facilities while simultaneously strengthening the network of community-based facilities that support diversion treatment, stabilization, recovery, and reentry. Back to Mike's point, our intake facility at the jail currently does not accommodate for what we're seeing come in that door. Our bed count fluctuates right as to what we're doing, and we have two siloed facilities on some level that are not working really well together when it comes to that. We have very minimal mental health facilities at our disposal right now, and so the report specifically recognizes those aging correctional facilities not meeting the current population, and it's both for the conditions of the workforce that are in those facilities. That's not great. Hard to recruit people when you're living and working daily in a center like that. It also comes for the outcomes that we're hoping to see those individuals change and make behavioral changes in their lives to have better outcomes. The recommendation pairs facility modernization with investments in treatment capacity, crisis stabilization, and diversion programs and reentry support. And then the task force really had some pressure around public safety infrastructure and behavioral health investments are competing priorities. They said, we want a system that is able to identify and work for both of those. We also don't think we need to have wholly necessarily separate grant facilities, that those should be built in a way that's to the capacity that our community needs and will need in the future. There's work obviously being done, and this is some of the success of where we looked at your guys's work to be able to stand up the essential facility siting work already to understand getting some of these boxes checked for what has to transpire from a public process when it comes to major facilities like this. And so recognizing that that was a very hard subject for the task force to understand. There's co-work happening in parallel, but their recommendations for what they wanted to see in the future facilities, I think came through really well within the final report and give a guide for the type of facility design that the community would be supportive of moving forward.
I'm gonna quickly just take us to the next two slides and then open it up. This
really important though is that we talked about the facilities. There's that last one, D2, which is housing, which I do think is important. Noting that the group really felt housing is not separate, but really it is part of that. Now, 14 of it covered.
Next slide. So you'll be aware of much of this already, but we think it's important for the community to better understand this as well. This is building on a whole bunch of things that are already happening in places that we really, the recommendations say, let's continue to do this at a deeper level. That's about the high utilizer initiatives. It's about joint opioid investments. It's about the navigation center in the daytime. There are system improvements we talked about that are ongoing conversations that are coming out of this process. And then, of course, on the facility side, the PATH Center under construction, the additional analysis and consultant work that's being done under her leadership. So just, we also think that part of what's important as we continue to think about better public health and public safety here is that the community really understands the efforts that are underway and that there is good opportunity for us to be more intentional about how we're communicating that on a consistent and regular basis. That came up in this process as well. Next slide. As we move forward, the conversation really turns to, all right, how do we get this done? And I think that you can anticipate that there will be many task force members who will reach out to you both individually and as a group to let you know the things that they're most interested in and invested in terms of what happens. We'll be doing a set of these briefings with the other jurisdictions to walk through the recommendations and have a similar conversation. The planning team, which was, as you may remember, Commissioner Jordan, Chair Brooks, and Sheriff, were all members of that team. Representation from the city and the city of the Valley, Spokane Valley as well. We met on Friday, and they're very interested in some of the folks inside of your systems, but also us as conveners to work together on identifying what are some actions that can really be taken in the next 6 months. How can we continue to make progress on this? And that there are actions that will require authorization from your body and from others. And so being explicit about what those are, where those opportunities are to really support and push this forward. And then of course, acknowledgement that that you all have hired some consultants, both in terms of planning for facilities and needs assessment, that work becomes really critical as we think about resources in relationship to these recommendations as we move forward as well. If either of you as task force members want to add?
Other than, I feel some personal responsibility to try to encourage this coordinating structure to get off the ground. So I'm meeting constantly with different behavioral health providers just to try to get an assessment of who's willing, and most everyone I contact is eager. So Zeke and I are going to work on that as well. But I will be curious as to what your all positions are, because I want to help navigate whatever concerns or if you have preferences. So I hope to have that conversation with you also. And Mike is very involved in that too. I didn't need to leave him out.
Happy to.
I think we leave with the sentiment that the table is really set for that to happen, and then work can diligently come through that. It's hard for, we look at this as conveners of this group, and everybody asks, well, what's next for the task force? And we had the ceremonial conclusion of getting the report done, and yet the work needs to start in earnest there to flow through and have a body that can move it. And I think there's a piece to recognize that the work, a lot of this lands with the county because of the nature of how the systems are established, but it can't all be landed by the county. So having some form of structure that brings those peer agencies to the table and allows for that and those detailed conversations of the experts to happen has to be in place. And so when you might have seen our position as conveners, we put an op-ed in on Sunday that really just iterates that now, we feel now is the moment. We really strongly think the table hasn't been set this well with this much engagement. And so how can we encourage the next steps to go forward to take advantage of what's been built and then take it to the next level?
The only, you all are elected officials, so you're in tune with the constituency as well. But it was interesting because before engaging on this task force, I wasn't exactly sure where I felt the community was, and obviously that's subject to here. We don't always get that calibration right. But it seemed to me like the community is in a place where everyone agrees that we probably do need some infrastructure building. I think the only contention is how much jail space to expand. That's the point of, I think that there's not universal agreement, but I was just really surprised in my experience how much consensus there was across the community about a lot of these issues.
So, yeah, I just, thank you for all your work, and I agree that I think getting coordinating council advisory group together is critical, because someone's got to own like the work, and that's part of the problem, right? Like everybody is working in all these different parts of our system, but if we don't have an overarching coordination and commitment to work together differently, it's not really, it's just, it's not gonna change, right? So anyway, I think it would be, that seems like the first step to be able to have successful changes happen over time. What are the thoughts about getting more feedback from the community? You know, now that the report's been released, I'm starting to dig into it, and I've talked to different neighborhood councils, I've talked to different Kiwanis clubs saying that this is coming, you know, over the last 6 months. I know people are interested, I know people are starting to read it, and you know, I think it would be great to get more feedback from the community about, like, what are the key things that they'd like to see us tackle first. So I know in the community engagement work that we've been doing through MacArthur, I'm on that little group with a lot of the same folks who were on the task force, and Gwen is our consultant who's been helping us. We've talked about maybe having some listening sessions or doing something, or having a way for people to give feedback after they've read the report, so that we can understand where people are coming from, what their highest priorities are. So I don't know.
I shared that with these guys, that Gwen is on contract through the end of the year. We may as well take advantage of it. She's, you know, pretty.
She's a very good facilitator.
Oh, she's a great facilitator. You know, just how do we do that? I guess that's more conversation to do that. And it's funded. It's funded through the end of year from MacArthur, so we could help to, you know, kind of put some of those nuts and bolts together to try to pull that together. So we're open for that. I think that's a good starting point, as you're talking about. What is the tie into the SRLJC? Of course, that would take the board to try to make a decision on who else would be included and incorporated in SRLJC. But you know, if you had a coordinating board, as they're talking about, that is a body in itself informing to, you know, the SRLJC or to the board, that, and that's a great composition, I think, for you to get provided the information, at least from the county side, on what we should be addressing, areas that should be looking at. So, I mean, thoughts, what do you guys think? Do you have any thoughts on that? Now I threw the ball back to you. Did you get that?
All the way from the outfield. I mean, we will be, as I mentioned, briefing the other jurisdictions. We have gone out and met with the coordinating community assembly of neighborhood councils. I would anticipate that we'll do that again. But really what we have at this point is the ability to say, here's the report, dig into it. I think in many ways it's a question of each of you as well as jurisdictions, right? You all the questions, what additional community input do you seek and for what, and then how you put that together, and is there a way to align that and coordinate that? But good conversations, as Mr. Sparber mentioned, around the community engagement part of the MacArthur process. I think that a lot of this is about work coordination, but I think really, you know, it's a great question. I think one of the things that we know is that for as much as we've been in the middle of this for the last 9 months, most people don't have a sense of what this is. And so the more that we can actually expose people to it, the more we'll get a sense of what broadly what communities, and specifically what communities think about and are invested in, ready to invest in as they move forward.
Then I brought up yesterday when I was talking to them, the SRLJC has had some challenges on getting someone from the racial inequity to be on a part of the SRLJC. It already lives in the body that we're talking about here. There's a lot of crossover in the people that are involved. So I think there's some good opportunity for us to look at some synergy there.
I was gonna piggyback on the listening session piece. I asked Mike to connect me with Gwen, and I had a little brief chat with her just to inquire if the board wanted to support some form of that happening. Would it fall under her purview, and does she have the ability to do that? And she said, thumbs up. So I think we've got a staff person, so to speak, who's available to assist if we choose to do that, which I think we should, because I think you guys have done a really great job as conveners. There's a website, there's all the meetings are streaming, so anybody who wants to really dive into sausage making, so to speak, of how those committees took place, can watch those meetings. But now there's kind of a handing off of the baton, right, from a community-led effort to delivering it to the regional jurisdictions. I think you guys are gonna go pretty city council and Valley Council soon. So I think it's appropriate to open it up wider to beyond just the kind of really knowledgeable, dedicated people who've been attending the meetings, just to see what the broader community thinks about, you know, really big scoped plan. It's not, you know, it's really, it has a certain scope focused on behavioral health and addiction, but it's a big coordination and vision of bringing these systems together that aren't used to that. So I just want to share, she's available. Maybe we could do one at Center Place, maybe one, you know, like in East Central or something like that. So just a suggestion.
I think I would offer to you the recommendations were formed by way of a substantial community engagement effort to bring the recommendations to where they are now. So, and it's not absent of socialization. We've been on the quasi roadshow, the Rotaries, the Leadership Spokanes, the Kiwanis clubs, the going to a Kiwanis club in 2 weeks that I didn't know existed that said, hey, what do you want to present on? I said, you should want to know about Safe and Healthy Spokane. So we're not stopping that part. We're really taking it to whatever stump is created for us to stand on and be able to talk to a group about. I also think that even your own experts that are on contract right now doing some MacArthur work just told us about the expertise and the understanding of successful coordinating council makeups that have stood the test of decade or two worth of time from around the country, have very similar requirements to what we have statutorily here in Washington, that we don't have to start from scratch. We actually have examples of where that's worked well, somewhat locally and then also throughout the country, that is in-house right now. And we also have identified, we have a skill set of individuals that we have carried that baton, so to speak, from the financial and from coordinating, bringing these meetings together. There's a desire from the private sector to continue to support on some level to see this work through to its next iteration while we get to that spot of overall funding for how to keep it going in perpetuity. But there's a lot of skill in this community that exists that could help be the leading convener of that work with dedicated expertise that we could point to. And so I think there's a great opportunity that for what we have currently in our disposal to move it quicker, I guess, and make some progress.
So just a simple thing to be able to, when I get questions about, oh, how can I give you input? I mean, obviously someone can send me an email with input or give me a call, but is there a way people can give input on what they think about the recommendations? I mean, it's living on your
feedback
website.
form on the website that people can submit.
But then who is collecting those and how do those comments get back to the local? I mean, maybe, anyway, I'm just brainstorming. Maybe we should just do our own direction of comments back to the Board of County Commissioners or something. But we can link to where the recommendations live on your website.
Yeah, we don't, we currently receive any message that comes in there, and then if it was directed at anybody, we could forward it along. So that's certainly an opportunity. If you wanted to do a dedicated outreach of some sort directly for your intake, then that would probably be smarter to live on your internal systems of some sort, and coordinate it that way. But also you have the ability to push the desire for feedback to your constituents in a different way than we would as private sector. So yeah, all of those I think are at your disposal. It's more up to what you all as a board want to see done for engagement. So
I think it's still, you've got the QR code at the end. They've got the website. I think it's better to still have it go through you guys at this point in time, because if it comes to us, we're only looking at it individually. We're not looking at it holistically like they've been looking at it for 9 months. And so I think to have them kind of be able to see what the comments are, and then, yes, get them to us. I mean, we can still look at it, but I think they're going to have a better opportunity to know what the coordination can happen with those. I mean, it's just Hazel said, you know, we don't always know, I don't know what the judges are doing. You know, he knows what they're doing, and then he knows the effect that that has on other entities, you know, with other nonprofit that could be doing those handoffs. You know, we don't know all that as commissioners, and so I think it's, to me, it's still important to have it go through here with the coordinating group. I mean, that's why I do feel it's important to have that coordinating group still be active and still be paying attention and help guide us as to what are things that we can do today that can make a difference. What can we do with the judges that, you know, can help make a difference? You know, we all know we're having budget issues, so it's going to be, what are the things that we can do that, you know, provide the handoffs that doesn't cost anyone really anything. But if we coordinate it, it's going to make a difference in our community. So I think kind of having it still go through this group for the time being, to me is essential. Because otherwise, if we get it and we're still going to have to send it off to them, you know, all of that. I'd rather have it go through a central location at this point in time, and kind of feed it that way. You know, especially if we're going to have MacArthur do, you know, a listening session. I mean, I feel like there has been more public input and on this already than anything that has ever happened before. So I'm not sure what we're really going to get.
Yeah.
I'm
kind of thinking of like, yeah.
providing an opportunity.
And that's fine. I think the next step is for us to start looking through the recommendations, costing out different things that will cost dollars. And to your point, Lance, some things maybe go away, or maybe some things get invested in that are new, that are gonna have better outcomes for the community, but yeah, and that's more like our internal next steps as a county, like what are the things, but I think we can direct people to give feedback, and as long as we can get that back to understand where there's a lot of energy. I think we want to go to where there's a lot of energy in the community, because we are going to need the community behind it, some of these things, because it's going to take time. It's going to be change. It's going to be maybe some investment or different investment than what we've done in the past. So, you know, I just appreciate all your work. So I want to make sure we keep the momentum going, and we have a good handoff to the local governments, and then we can then start to cost out things that would impact the county, right?
And I would add too, I don't want to lose the momentum. It's going so well right now. So what are the next steps coming up in a month or so? Can we have any more convened meetings, or are we done convening the meetings? Because I'd hate to see it not.
Well, I think that's why you saw the priority around creating a coordinating council really rise to the top. That is the next step.
Okay.
That is the next step. Prioritize both the recommendations. And I think, you know, again, as conveners, this work has identified the need where someone is day in, day out driving this forward. And really, you know, you keep hearing this word coordination, right? Someone who is full-time thinking about how we take all the different pieces and how they fit together. And that's why that recommendation, like I said, it kind of came out naturally at the end, but really rose to the first recommendation in the report because of that prioritization.
And there's recognition that the coordinating council will need some sort of administrative lead that is accountable to the council to drive the work, because again, when we look at it, our organizations can't continue to lead it at the pace that it's been at into perpetuity, nor do we have the authority to hold that position. And so I think that's the emphasis of why that was recommendation number 14 that actually bumped to number 1 via the task force's recommendation to move it to the top, because without a driver, and it's not owned by any one place, which is the challenge, and so it needs to be recognized with the authority, but also somebody needs to be there to be a daily push, whether we have that person now or whether we have to find a way to do that. And that's where I think there is confidence that depending on what that structure looks like, we could potentially find a way to help from the private sector on that again. There's also the idea we have the planning team that's been meeting, so that's the jurisdictional lead representatives. That group has committed to meet. We were monthly through the end of the year, although I think we increased that pace between now and the end of August. So we have 3 meetings on the schedule right now to get us to August, and then we'll go to monthly through the end of the year. That could be added as additional and be bi-monthly still, but that group has committed to continue to work together. And so you have 3 major jurisdictions and law enforcement at the table for that part. The other piece would just be then like how your engagement process looks. The CL or CELT as part of MacArthur, they're running a survey right now. You could probably ask that survey be tweaked. There's been minimal engagement on that so far, to the point where if you wanted to use that effort that's already out there for engagement in the community and shift the priority of what they're getting feedback on, it sounds like you have a great individual in place to be able to facilitate. And so that could be put on to the roadshow of being able to gather more feedback. I think we heard 20 sub 30 responses so far to the initial survey there. And so, but that's an informed data piece that is available that you're already working on. And so,
Yeah, it's going pretty well. We've only got 28 responses so far, but as we go out to these other venues, we can collect more. And that's what we're looking for. Or
So that survey was created through this process?
JMI.
Oh.
Arthur and
Got it.
but this is
when-
now a new piece of material that could drive additional
Yeah, maybe we
engagement.
could
that
just
hasn't existed.
adjust it a bit to direct people to ask some specific questions about the recommendations.
We have a lot of good things in place right now. We just need to coordinate them.
Yeah.
As the chair said,
Well, there's a meeting this Thursday, right, of the community engagement. And I won't be able to be there because I'll be at the joint city county airport board meeting. So hopefully you can get feedback and figure out some next steps with when and the growth. And that group contains people from defense, prosecutors, judges, Judge Viviano's kind of chair. Right, yeah, okay.
Judge Viviano and Dr. V are the.
Dr. V, so a lot of the same people.
We just provide the back office for it.
On the 24th of June, Barbara and I are gonna go to the Spokane Safe Alliance. I think I have that. And my goal is to try to recruit as many behavioral providers to start the warm handoff process, but also recruit them into the whatever structure results from this.
The facilities group is meeting tomorrow, I believe. Double check your calendar for that one. Sheriff is, it's a kind of just a lot of the planning team folks. So this sheriff's been a part of it, Councilmember Cathcart and the mayor of the Valley, mayor of Spokane, etc. So we'll be chatting with Carter Global Lead, who's the consultant on the facilities options assessment. So learn more from them about kind of how they plan to take the high level vision, I guess, or framework of the integrated facilities plan that's called for here and translate that into some more concrete possibilities and put some dollar figures, hopefully, to different iterations of what facilities could look like in the future. So that we'll have at least one more meeting on that. We've kind of been scheduling the follow on based on how what the need to discuss continues to be. So I think from the perspective of the planning team folks who've been engaged, it's the commitment is there to continue working on it. I just wanted to thank the conveners, Hispanic task force members, it's been a huge lift for you all, in addition to your regular day jobs, to kind of shepherd this all the way through. With all the cats that have been herded to get to a report like this that's really thoughtful and it's quite balanced in looking at, talking in the workforce recommendation, it talks about judges, it talks about prosecutors, it recognizes staffing challenges that we have in law enforcement. So it speaks to those things. It addresses the inadequacy of our current correctional facilities while having a thoughtful, balanced approach to that. I think a couple of things that just kind of stuck out to me, I wanted to mention. One is just how expensive the cycling is, right? That some of these high utilizer folks kind of continuing to fall in and out and come back and fall through the cracks again is a lot of public investment that goes into that. So there's big opportunities for savings if we can have a more coordinated intervention and focus on those folks. And also, you know, it's an ambitious plan, but it was encouraging to read through it that the recognition of all the ways that we're not starting from scratch and that there's good things to build on. I was thinking of student wellness initiative on the youth prevention is something that we're doing now as the county that could all be part of an integrated youth strategy. So on each of these, I mean, years I was thinking about Veterans Court has the Veterans Forum, which is kind of a peer-like concept. And over in juvenile court where I used to work, they had a program called Parents for Parents, which was parents who've been through the child welfare system kind of coming alongside and helping to mentor people coming through as first timers. So we've got these great programs here. We've got one over there, but we don't have it necessarily broad based in the way that it could be. So in each of these, I see, okay, that's old, but we've got this, we've got that. How can we build on that? So really hopeful if we can keep the momentum going, we can drive some good actions. Want to just thank the sheriff too, who's been a real great participant. Our press conference may have been a little long, so to slice and dice for media coverage, but it was, sheriff had really great comments and the city, so it was just a very positive statement on work that you've all done.
Good. Deep from district court.
Hello, I just wanted to say hi from afar. Misty Griffith with Spokane County District Therapeutic Courts. And I was part of the task force, had the honor of being a part of these groups. I appreciate all of that and just wanted to indicate I was part of the data coordination group. And one of the things, an offshoot that came from meeting with this group is they talked about some continuations that have happened, that this report was just the beginning of this work. So we actually are meeting next Friday. It'll be a group with probation and therapeutic courts for Superior District and municipal courts. And we're talking about doing a universal screening and assessment tools for participants that are coming through our programs. So we have several of these little offshoots that are happening with this. We have another group that was the main data and coordination group that is still meeting, where we talked with a county in Pennsylvania that has a universal data governance framework and structure that we're learning from, and got to kind of pick their brains around that too. So I just wanted to kind of put that in there and thank everyone for their comments and input. So
Thank you, Ms. No, and I would just say thank you. I mean, it has been a lot of work for all involved, from task force members to subcommittee to, so. And I think it shows how we did need to coordinate. We did need to come together. The Law and Justice Council wasn't getting these ideas forward. And as I keep going back to budget as the accountant here, as we look at what the budget is for the future, I mean, we have to figure out things are already in the system that aren't coordinated, that we need to coordinate, that aren't costing anyone already helping in the community. And I think it is getting the other jurisdictions where we all really decide what as jurisdictions are we responsible for and what are we not responsible for. The commissioner, they want to put it on the county, it's the county's responsibility, but it's collectively all of our jurisdictions have a piece of this that we would have to coordinate, how we like dollars, you know, and spend them better for the entire community, and then look at what future items would be. So I just want to say thank you, and I don't want to see it. And we do know that facilities group is continuing to meet, the planning committee is continuing to meet. You know, we need the other groups, like Missy's saying, to continue to meet, because I think that, you know, and we don't have to have anyone force that to happen. I mean, I think it's happening organically because we know it needs to happen. So I think it will be the piece of how do we formalize it for future, instead of the having it organically happen, you know, where you guys formalized it for getting it to start and this point. So I see that as kind of the next step, is figuring out how we formalize it to have it continue. It's really important. And no matter what happens, there's needs that are beyond the budget that we have now. And so there'll be, you know, we'll need to figure out where other opportunities are for dollars. So I just want to say thank you all very much. Appreciate it. I don't know if you have any last comments, or Josh.
Just waiting for my opening.
Oh, sorry.
Wrapping this up already. Okay.
Well, yeah, no, we're at a time and we got to exec
I
session.
wanted to ask, so and first of all, thank you for all the work that's gone into this. I'm about halfway through so I haven't seen the exciting ending of the document yet. But when this process started, there was a lot of conversation about that it was setting up for a November ballot measure. Is that still the request? I know folks are talking about additional community outreach. We have a deadline of August if something is to go on a ballot. What is that still the concept, the ask, the desire that this be put in front of voters this year? Or do you think this is going to be something for that we look at the no or low cost things and come back at another time with something that we would put in front of voters?
So the task force was never asked to create a ballot measure, since that is the only body that has the authority to do that is the Board of Commissioners. And the task force was intentional in looking at what is the criteria by which the committee or the community wants you to consider should you evaluate what resources are necessary. I think the report identifies that there are resources that are needed. While there's a lot that we can do today with the resources within the county, there's a lot more that's needed that's going to require resources. But a ballot measure comes from this body. It didn't come from the task force because that wasn't what they were tasked with.
No, and
Yeah.
I get that, but when this process started, I mean, it was certainly the chatter folks from the task force.
It started there only because its origin was on the heels of the failed 2023 measure one. So when the organizations came together to start the conversation around what's next, and Zeke's organization at the time asked for a meeting to say, hey, weird moment in time here, but I'd like to bring this back to the forefront and see what we can do to move the community forward on the 2024. And then that went to the grounding of that work started in June of 24 when we went to Whatcom County again. That was circled around how they had gone from 2 failed measures to a successful measure using a specific taxing method within the state of Washington that exists. So I think it's easy to look at all that and say ballot measure, right? And again, one of the pieces for even getting the convening of the task force together was to say what work would be demanded to be done as part of a plan for the region that the community could support. And if it needed additional resources, that support was going to be necessary to get a measure approved. What the measure is, what all it would include, and how that would look was never given to them as a task, and was complicated at the beginning. I think I'd point to the task force members to ask for their insight on how we navigated that. I think in the end, we did a really good job of saying, no, your job here is not to create what a ballot measure might look like, but your job here is to create a plan that will be successful. And so when when the idea is at the end of the day, it's fund outcomes, not programs, might be the best way of looking at this. To get outcomes, you're gonna need a proper mix for the community. You're gonna need facilities that do the jobs that we need them to do, and whether those exist today or don't, and need to be built into the future. That's what we wanted to control. What we could control, we could control the recommendations. We couldn't control the method to which our jurisdictions would come to the terms of what would work to put in front of the community. We believe we have a strong playbook for what will work for a system moving forward. Whether you can get to doing most of that within your existing means, or whether that requires additional funding on the back end. We're not the accountant for the county. I don't know how you're gonna take the beans and move them from one pot to another and see if you're left with any or if you need more. But I think what we can say is from the private sector who convened this group, we feel very confident in what the report's asking to be done, that it will have good outcomes in the future. And so again, we point back to, we cannot craft what we don't know when it comes to the budget of what the program and mix of facility slates this report are calling for. But we'll continue to sit alongside you to work towards those solutions to implement the report.
See, when Emily and I came a few months back and talked to you all, we did talk about the fact that the intent with the task force was to deliver this report in time for you all to at least have the opportunity to consider a ballot measure as early as November. So clearly that was a part of the conversation.
Thank you.
Yes. And I think that the urgency that's required in terms of both the system that I think we all would like to see, but also the kind of resources that are going to be necessary to get there. Implore us all to consider how do we get whatever resources are available as quickly as possible to address this. As Lance mentioned, you all have a sense of both all the different puts and takes that are a part of that equation, both in terms of what existing budget looks like and concerns are around it, as well as where there might be additional resources. The other, I think, challenge that the task force really needs to be visible to other folks. I'm sure this is a part of what you all have seen. It's just the complexity of the fact that, as Emily mentioned, we don't have all the data that we would want to be able to really understand the system today and understand where we want to go. There's work that needs to be done to pull that data together, to do the analysis, and then to be able to make informed data-driven decisions at that point. There are a set of criteria that were identified. You probably haven't gotten here in the report yet, but under the facilities recommendations, a set of what were called criteria from the task force that in effect are like, if and when you all or others are going to ask for additional resources for facilities, these are the things we want to know are being considered and have been understood as we move forward. So those are worth, I think, looking at and saying, how much do we feel like we can answer those kinds of questions for the public at large? But the reality is it's a quick timeline to get to August. And I think we could all make the case that there's enough urgency there. The question is, do we have enough of a sense of where we want to put those resources in a way that can allow, I think, the voters to make the decisions that they need to make.
And I think initially it just provided again, kind of a timeframe when this group got together, is trying to get the information and get it together so we would have an opportunity if we wanted to. There's, from 9 months ago to now, there's a lot of factors that are playing into what we think could be to have a successful ballot measure. Yeah. So.
No, and the only reason many names in your report had told me we are going to come up with recommendations that we are going to provide to the BOCC in hopes you will put something on the November ballot. Many people said that to me. I just want to see, is that still what you guys were hoping, is that it will be something that will be on this year? Because this is a very tight timeline. The original May deadline, we're nearly a month and a half beyond early May when we were hoping to get, I just want to make, you guys have put in a great deal of work and I thank you for that. And I don't want to, quite frankly, I don't want you guys to feel slighted. It's like, oh, the BOCC just blew us off. We wanted something this year and they didn't put it on. I just. Hundreds of people have worked on this, thousands and thousands of hours. And I just want to make sure we still know what you guys are hoping for as we. I mean, because we get beyond August, there's nothing we can do if we don't, I mean, that there's a deadline there that has to be hit, if that's still what your guys' desire is. And I just want to make sure we understand what your desire is, what your ask is.
Go ahead. So I'm just speaking for myself, right? Because I'm just a task force member. I thought it was a good idea that they didn't recommend the timing of the ballot. And the reason for that in my mind is if we put a ballot measure on, I don't want it to fail. And I don't know whether or not it would or not. So I kind of leave it to your judgment as to, is this the right time? Are the conditions right? And I kind of leave that to you, your all judgment, because you know, there's other ballot measures competing. There's other factors at play. And so ultimately, I think one of the primary assessments you all need to make is this the right time? Will this be successful? And I don't know the answer to that.
To Judge Hazel's point, I would say that the task force is not predicating success of implementation on this report on whether or not there's a November ballot measure.
Okay.
Would a November ballot measure that is successful increase the speed with which we could do that implementation? Absolutely. But it is not predicated on that ballot measure at that point.
Okay, it's just a lot of things, there's very little in the criminal justice system doesn't cost something.
I think that's.
We're looking at, I mean, I'll just throw out one of the things that was mentioned today about having a staff member, having someone run some new iteration of the SRLJC. I don't know if we have money to hire one additional person. We're looking at eliminating positions. So, I mean, even that, sounds like it's very doable. We're in a very, very tough budget situation. I don't know. I'm being straight with you. One person may be, I mean, that's sending us in the wrong direction on our budget outlook. So I just, that's why I ask. I mean, there's going to be a lot of things where it's like, well, that doesn't cost much. And it's like, we're looking at a $30 million hole. It's like, yeah, it's not much, but it's sending us deeper in that hole. And so that's, I just want to be open with you guys on that. And one of the other things too, it sounds like we have a lot, I mean, all the organizations, all the folks that were a part of this today seem to be in support of this. If this is something that we bring out to voters in a year, 2 years from now, are all of these same people still going to be on board? I mean, this is an interesting thing for our community. There are a lot of names, a lot of organizations here that aren't normally on the same page. They seem to be on the same page right now. And it's like, I don't want to miss that opportunity. I mean, we have got a lot of people on a lot of different sides, a lot of different fences that are all holding hands right now. And so that's just another thing I'm trying to, like, this is interesting. This doesn't normally happen.
It's the urgency, yeah.
Well, I think that is, I mean, I can't underscore it. That's a theme. We talked about coordination being a theme in the report. So is urgency. And so that would be maybe just one of the considerations as you move forward as a body, is understanding that there is a sense of urgency that came from the task force, that also came from the input that built the recommendations. And as you consider how you now take these recommendations and how you prioritize and implement them, understand that there's a real sense of urgency.
I think that what I would leave you with is that recommendation number 14, which was the last to be developed, but the first on the list is the one piece of prioritization that the task force felt confident had to exist to be able to create and maintain the environment that has been created, to find those group of people on the same sheet with marching in kind of the same direction. And when you get through the rest of the document, it's determined that funds are needed to be able to implement and move forward. That's the conversation that we knew we could not have, but you all would have to be able to have. But the one piece of that coordinating council is the piece that's very key to be able to let the work and the convening continue in a place that has the authority to move the community forward. Because absent that, there is the ability for the group to disband and the viewpoints to differ, and again, siloization to take over instead of the coordinated effort that's been here, been moving us in a very positive direction. So, and I leave you with that there's energy from the private sector if to coordinate and convene and lead that structure is something that we can't figure out a path, like come back with that request, because there's a lot of energy that what we've done is making a positive impact. And we don't want to see that. We've invested substantial dollars from the private sector to do this, as has the public sector in way of time and talent that's been dedicated to this. We don't want to see that pause. We want to see the forward momentum keep going. We can't design a ballot measure and put it on the ballot. That's up to your guys' team. And so if the report is ready to go, in your opinion, we're going to be there to support. We're also going to be there to support the coordinating to get to where the report helps guide us to something in the future for the system. The system as a whole needs to be coordinated. We need the assets in place to be able to move everything forward. We also recognize things will change over that time. When we started this, there's a lot different in our world just 9 months ago than there is today. And so that's a piece, as Judge Hazel mentioned. We again went into it looking at the system, not looking at that, knowing that we had a target. We were just slightly behind on our date, but we felt like we ended the process with that in the most healthy spot we could. And so we've got a really great springboard for you to lead from now. Where do we go next is that big question. And again, back to from the Valley Chamber, Greater Spokane Incorporated, ESP, Waterspeed, our entities support this foundation that we've been able to come out with this, along with the task force who has signed off saying they support where we're at. We're willing to continue to work. We hope that this is a great spot for you to be able to ground that work and work with the community. So,
So two quick kind of like next steps then. So we are gonna talk about some listening sessions that we can host with Gwen, since we already have her. Maybe look at her schedule and see when. I just can't make that meeting Thursday, Mike, but you'll talk about it with the community engagement group. And then, do we have a template for the coordinating council makeup?
There
that
is
we
a
can just
template.
pull from
Yeah.
to start a conversation?
I can send that
as a board
basis.
That would be great. I mean, I know you gave some general guidance
Yeah,
around it.
yeah.
But you talked about some examples from other communities that have had they've lasted a long time, which means they're probably set up with a decent structure. So, I mean, I think what would be helpful to me, because I think getting the board members to have a conversation about the coordinating committee as soon as possible, but we need to kind of see an outline of what that would be.
If I send you the CJCC model, which is an evidence-based model, realize it can be tweaked to Spokane. And some jurisdictions do pool their money, and those are not the kinds of things that we're talking about.
Judge, can I ask, how does it differ from the SRLJC?
It
As
is-
far as makeup?
Yeah, no, it's cross-jurisdictional. So the
Yeah.
SRLGC just has the minimal legislative representative music.
Sorry, let me correct my question. How does it differ from the SRLJC we had pre-COVID? Which I think you were on, weren't you?
Yeah. There's some similarity to our pre-COVID model or prior to, I think, 2018 model. But it is even more robust. It tries to get every entity that touches the criminal justice system. So like, your behavioral health providers, not just government stakeholders, but even potentially schools, anyone that has any kind of involvement in the criminal justice system would have some place, whether it be on a committee or a subcommittee, but they're coordinated in some fashion. So it's more robust.
Okay.
And it has more stakeholders essentially.
Okay.
I mean, So Amber, back to your listening session. I don't know that we're all in agreement that we need more listening sessions. That was, I mean, I think we've gotten a lot of public input. I think, again, they can go to the website, they can scan the QR code, they can put information out there, have them coordinate that. But I'm not sure that I want to take Gwen's time and use it that way. I thought there was another alternative, so I think we need to talk about that before we do a couple listening sessions, because I think we have already listened a lot.
Yeah, I'm just hearing from the community that they want to read it, give input. I don't think we've really had the general public have an
Yes, but
opportunity
that's what we
yet.
said.
Right.
They can do that. There's a QR code that they can go to. They can go to the website and give their input from reading it.
There's a link right at there's a
Yes.
tab right at the top that says feedback.
So we can encourage people to do that and then have it go through the group to kind of coordinate that, for us. So I'm not sure that we're having separate listening sessions or where all of us on the board want to go at this point.
But we can talk about it.
Yes.
I think it would be great.
Yes, we can. I mean, this is just, we need to get moving on to other topics, so.
Can I just say one more thing on the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, CJCC? One thing I'd ask to borrow your brains about when you digest it is to think about, we want this to be long-term. We don't want this to become a vehicle for political attacks, right? We
Which
want
is what the
this to be
SRLJC devolved into.
Right, exactly. So we can learn from the mistakes there without pushing everyone away, right? That's,
I just wanted to take back on that and mention that the last planning team, I think it was one of the action steps was to reconvene the advisory committee that had made that recommendation. Ask them to give a little more specific guidance. Am I remembering that right?
Reconvening the leads of the advisory group, so it's like 12 task force members plus the conveners to specifically work on taking both the models that we know from other places, history here, here's a path forward for a coordinating council.
And then just one of the things that I'm hopeful, a couple things that might be different from the old SRLJC. A is having this roadmap to focus the work, right? I don't know that existed for the old group, and so it perhaps became easier for it to devolve into disagreements when there's been a really robust process to.
It was a great platform for people to air their grievances.
Well,
Let
there-
them in,
I think they did.
and then they
For reform was part of what the whole group.
Right, so I think this has been built by community in a different way even than that
No,
was.
I mean, I agree. I'm just saying there was a roadmap.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I think that'll help, and optimistic to see that we'll get that done.
and nicely, that same negative dynamic was not present on the task force. That just wasn't there. That's thanks to the professional organization.
I'll just add here, if you want information on the CJCC, you can download it from the National Institute of Corrections. It's in their library.
Thank you. We've gone way over.
Thank you.
We appreciate you being early because we've gone extended. beyond that. So Judge, thank you for coming down and
Thanks for having me.
maybe I know that we've got things in mind. Thank you. So appreciate it and we will continue.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I know you always have to change your your
I
schedule.
got coverage today, so
Awesome.
Oh, very good.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I know we have executive sessions.
Do
We're not done.
3 executive session items today. They're all pending and potential litigation. First one, dealing with no action. Scott Simmons, Jeff McMorris, Matt Folsom, Devin Curda, Tessa Sheldon, Vicky Dalton, Jim Donovan, Wall. Rules there. Yeah, that's that correct. Second one, Scott Simmons, Jeff McMorris.
How long?
15 minutes. Second one, 20 minutes, no actions, Scott Simmons, Morris, Matt Folsom, Devin Curda, Kyle Twig, Scott Resney. 20 minutes, no action. Final 15 minutes, no action. Scott Simmons, Jeff McMorris, Devin Curtin, Matt. No action.
15 minutes, so is everyone okay to stick through for 15 minutes?
Yeah. Say 15.
50.
Oh,
It's
at
50.
12:30.
Maybe then, like,
Okay, all right. Math, I'm an attorney. Math.
Yeah, let's take auditor first, auditor Dalton first.
We aren't sure where the rest of the troops are, but.
Okay. We're gonna get going. We got a 12:30 hard stop, so, and we've got 3 executive sessions. we gotta get to. Okay. So we're going into executive session for the 3 items just discussed. At the end of those, there is no decision that will be made, so we will adjourn for the morning and see